joining us. How are we all today? Today, we are going to be talking about leadership branding. I'm super excited because I think this is an intersecting culture that we really haven't explored much and that has the power to really help emerging leaders, and particularly a lot of our clients who are stepping from being part of a team to managing that team. That's a particularly challenging transition that brings with it its own set of challenging dynamics. And so I'm really hoping that some of what we talk about today will start to support you guys in doing that. Okie dokie. So I'm here today with Marissa Candy. Marissa is from the Marketing Factory in Success, North Queensland. I'll introduce her formally shortly, but essentially what Marissa's agreed to generously donate her time for us today for is to look at how do we start to create leadership profiles that have real impact. Okay, so today we're going to step together through leadership branding. What does it mean to create your personal profile? Why is that important? We'll talk a little about repositioning yourself. So maybe you feel like your leadership profile has gotten off track, or you don't know where to start with creating one, or maybe you've moved from one role in a team to another one. And you'll have the opportunity to do a leadership strengths profile and sign yourself up for a coaching session with our head executive coach, Stewart Fleming. For anyone who's not familiar with me, which must be none of you by now, this is me here in front of you. As you know, I'm the director and founder of Stratcom, and I'm also the author of the Cultures of Excellence Framework, and the author of the books you see in front of you. The Cultures of Excellence Framework is the one you see on the screen now. I know it looks a little bit busy, but let me just give you a little bit of context so you know where we're coming from when we deliver these kinds of training modules to you. So the Cultures of Excellence Framework really was created because many years ago I was training as a third-party trainer. And what I found was that organisations, especially at the corporate level, but also small businesses, were consistently sending their people on skills training or sometimes personal development training, and they were maybe doing some stuff in the strategic space up on high in their closed rooms, and not really integrating what that meant for people, not really creating proper context for people about the strategies, and dumping big documents on people's desks and say, here you go, here's the new policy and strategy, this is the change we need to implement. And so as a change strategist, I often found that I was getting called in where there was conflict, or, relationships were starting to break down, silos were getting greater, leadership impact and influence was lessening, because we weren't taking that time to contextualize for people properly. What's the vision? Where are we headed? And what's your role in all of that? So this framework was really created to address that gap. What you see on the left-hand side of the page, that's our 10 principles of excellence. That's the 10-point plan that we use for individuals to develop insight, take action, and expand outcomes. And now this is really based on the principles of positive psychology, building resilience, communicating for outcomes, this kind of thing. But really, you can use this personally or professionally. I know it works because I've been using it for years with all sorts of clients, small business, big business, in Australia, out of Australia, public, private, you name it, we've done it. It is a very effective pathway to follow if there's an area of your life that's not working, or just not working quite as well as you'd like it to. On the right-hand side of the page there, you'll see our 5 pillars of excellence. Now, these are the 5 areas that we always say to organisations you need to plan for and work around. And when we do gap analysis work with clients or strategy work, we always collect data and then we categorise it into these areas. And there's a really important reason for that, and it is that depending on the spread of issues within your organisation, you need different kinds of interventions and strategies to move the needle. So if you want to change culture, or if you want to sustain improved culture, or if you want to grow improved culture over time, then you need to understand what are you actually dealing with, where are the pain points, and what are the right ways to deal with that. And then right in the middle of that, which is very relevant for us today, we have that technique of inspired engagement. And this is really a leadership technique. And by leadership, I don't mean just people with the designation manager in their title, but really anyone who sees themselves as part of the future vision of an organisation or industry and wants to position themselves within that industry. And that's one of the reasons why I'm so excited that we have Marissa here to talk to us today about personal branding and the value of leadership profile or creating profile at leadership level. And, you know, when we talk about the importance of culture, my opinion is always that our organisations, they're a collection of individuals. So the culture is really the sum total of how we as individuals think, feel, react to each other, approach our role, you know, manage our relationships. And a lot of the time we have existing culture. There's already impact of legacy culture in organisations and industries, and we got to rework some of those pain points and breakdowns to create more effective organisational outcomes and better business culture. So we're really often talking about managing that above the line stuff, which is all the behaviours we refer to as being positive, and the below the line or negative stuff that we see. None of us are always above the line and none of us are always below the line. But what we're seeking to do here is to align our intention, which for the most part, most of us wake up with good intentions in that positive space above the line. We want to be respectful. We want to work as a team. We want to collaborate and be effective in our communication. But sometimes we find ourselves triggered below the line there. And the real challenge, and the reason I always like to show this slide for context on the webinars, is that we sometimes forget how easy it is to get triggered. And, you know, we ourselves get triggered into below the line experience, but also we often pigeonhole other people and we assume that they are, you know, they are below the line, their identity is below the line. And so their profile starts to look for us as if it's a bit in the negative. And I'm sure Marissa can share more with us about these thoughts, but I'm really interested in how leadership sometimes get pigeonholed into this below the line kind of perception in the minds of the broader workforce or team. So, you know, one thing I would say about above and below the line is it's not just about behaviours, it's about ways of thinking, it's about our mindset, and, you know, our feelings are derived from our thoughts. So our brain is creating our emotional reactions. So we want to start to notice what kind of thoughts we're having about individuals and get some self-mastery and discipline over how we manage those thoughts to get more effective experiences for ourselves. Because we may not always be able to change the external environment, but we certainly can manage our own thinking and therefore shift our own experience. And one of the reasons we want to do that, of course, is that we see multiple benefits. So, you know, we want individuals to be happy and healthy and well. We know that organisations get better outcomes when their people are happy and working well together. And there are certain areas that you see on the bottom left there that we can use to measure culture, but there may be other areas that you use to measure effective culture, but these are just some common ones that our clients are often using. But, you know, it's important that we first start to help people have better experience at the individual level. And that's really what we try to do with this webinar series, as most of you will know. Now, I mentioned the 5 areas that we kind of categorize: issues, stressors, you know, themes, breakdowns, and this can be relationship breakdown, it could be leadership communication issues, it could be business breakdowns, it could be not meeting targets, could be all kinds of things. But we need to properly understand those pain points and stressors if we want to address them effectively. And that's the strategist in me talking. But you know, one of the reasons why it's so great to have Marissa with us today is because leadership profiling and our personal branding within organisations can really have a massive impact on all of these areas, I'd say. Would you agree with that, Marissa?
Oh, definitely.
Yep. Yeah, so we can start to impact perception of our organisation at the industry level. We can start to influence not only the way that we communicate and the outcomes we get within our teams, but the experience of culture that our teams have by being more effective about the way we manage and market our own brand. So let me take a moment now to introduce you to Marissa. She's a very special guest and a new but dear friend of mine. Marissa's been around in the marketing and media industry for over 15 years, and she has so much intimate knowledge of her industry. You know, she's the director and of the Marketing Factory. And the Marketing Factory is an advertising agency based in Townsville up in North Queensland, but actually rates in the top 7% of all creative industries in Australia. So that is no mean feat. Marissa is also the founder and editor of Success NQ, and I'm a regular contributor to that publication. She's also a board member of North Queensland Football, and most impressively, she's a single mum of 2 beautiful little boys while running a team of 8 in a successful business. So I'm going to hand over to Marissa now, and she's going to talk you through her thoughts on the power of personal branding.
Thanks, Kim. Thanks for having us today, and welcome everyone to today's session. It's been a great privilege to be here, and it's lovely to be talked up so much as well, Kim. So thank you very much for that. Because we've all come here today looking to create a personal brand, you know, and some people think, oh, wow, what am I going to do to get started? Guess what? You've already got one. Each of us already are walking around with our own personal brand. So, and in a lot of settings, whether you're walking into a new room for the first time, whether you're meeting someone for the first time, your personal brand and perception is being gathered by the viewer, by the audience, or by the people around you. And so whether we like it or not, and regardless of what our mum tells us, don't judge a book by its cover, it really does happen every single day. So again, you've seen a photo of my face that's appeared, and maybe you've started gathering your own perception on my personal brand, the way I speak, the words that I'm using, the articulation in my tone. You can't see my expression, but I can tell you, you know, I'm quite a passionate young lass. And, and so, you know, all of these things are gathered to make up our personal brand. But the beautiful thing is that if you want to change your personal brand, you can. It's alive and has the ability to change. Because why? It's controlled by all of our own actions and words. So the person that you were does not need to define the person that you want to be. So it's actually, you know, it's fluid and it's always forever moving in a lot of ways. But there's obviously a lot of things that we're doing that can influence our personal brand without realizing. Here's a little interesting stat for you. If you are looking to apply for a new job, now this number has gone up from 2016. For the people applying for a new job, the percentage of employers that are actually checking you out online, in 2016, it was 35%. Right now, it was the end of 2018, that number is 90%. So if you are looking to get a new job or put your hand up for an increased role in your organisation, looking to join a board or a community group, then you can bet your bottom dollar that someone is going to be Googling you or checking you out online. So, you know, again, Googling your name, viewing yourself, viewing your social profile from a stranger's perspective is really super important. So on top of your digital footprint, people are gathering thoughts about you based on, you know, your general view on life, whether you're a glass half full person or always talking about some negative things. Are you a person that people actually try to avoid and go, oh God, hope I don't end up in that webinar with that Kim woman again? No, just joking. You know, or do you make other people feel really good in your company, or are you overly critical? Some of these things are often challenging questions because it's all about us. Right? It's all about ourselves. Let's talk about someone else. You know, let's take the spotlight off me. But unfortunately, you know, our personal brand, when you actually have a strong one, it is one of the most powerful things that you have, because at the end of the day, there is no difference between you, me, and Oprah. She has just developed the most amazing personal brand to trigger her into this great world of success, and wouldn't we love her bank account at the end of the day? So that's the power of personal branding. And so, you know, today I wanted to talk through a few ideas, you know, on how we can create a good one, a strong one, about developing our leadership brand. So developing our leadership brand is pretty much the same as building our personal brand. If I can speak from my own experience, you know, as building my career, I suddenly went from being the person that was really good at my job to having people that I needed to manage. and I needed to lead, I needed to inspire, I needed to fill them with thought that they could actually do more than that they think they could. So this was a really big challenge, because a lot of the time we get promotions through work, or we get extra opportunities without actually receiving any training on how to actually do that and how to actually lead people. Oh God, I'm managing myself here, and I think I'm doing a pretty good job, obviously. So now, how do I step from being one of their fellow colleagues to someone that they now look to respect, and all of these things? So this is, a few through our tips throughout the rest of this session, we'll actually go through some ideas and ways in which that you can develop a strong, positive one. Righto. Well, the first thing, like anything, I think they say this in most areas of life that you want to change, right? Identification is one of those things. What type of leader do you want to be known as? So we talk about things like knowing what your strengths are. What are you actually good at? What gets you excited? Focusing on these things. Being self-aware, aware of all of these great skills that you actually have, and what skills of those that offer great value. Conversely, understand what you're not good at. Identify what they do find a little bit challenging. We all have not been blessed with being the amazing YouTuber, to be an amazing written communicator. We have been blessed with the things, fortunately, with a lot of good things. So let's promote those, because what will happen in time, when you actually build your brand and then need to hire people around you, you hire people to your weaknesses. So they're going to be really strong in the areas that you're not. So really identify your brand first on the leader that you want to be. Right, once we know who we want to be, we want to start building our brand. Now, just as much as other people are judging us, let's have a really hard look at ourselves. We're going to have a look in the mirror. I like to say, meet with a close, honest friend or someone that you trust. I could sit down here with Kim and say, look, Kim, I'm really trying to get to this point. I'd really love to be the next Sonia Kruger. Do you think that I'm on the path by the way I look, act, dress, present, carry myself in a public situation, that I'm actually on my way to being the next Sonia Kruger? Forget the fact that I just blew my hip out last week and I'm not going to be dancing anytime soon. But, the fact that I wouldn't mind hosting a show or something like this, whatever is relevant in your region, in your area, and what you want to be. Are you on track? Get your good friend, your network to tell you, honestly, are you on track? Yeah.
It's always so interesting to me that, particularly as we sort of advance in our leadership careers, people still seem to be quite reticent to actually seek this kind of feedback.
Yeah.
And one of the key things we found in our research when I was writing my first book around leadership is that, people really want their leaders to be authentic and to be vulnerable. So people don't see leaders as weak or incompetent when they show who they really are. They actually feel really warm. And in terms of the neuroscience of vocabulary, we actually begin to want to help people. Like, it creates a neurological reaction where we produce oxytocin, which is, of course, the love drug, right? So it is the opposite of a stress-inducing environment when leaders communicate in ways that present vulnerability in organisations. And, if you want to know more about that, check out anything by Brené Brown. I'm sure most of you have watched the Netflix special by now. But she's a longitudinal researcher into vulnerability and its impact on organisations. The more that you can be vulnerable and be real and be yourself with your people, the more they're going to give you genuine feedback that's constructively but positively framed. And so, yeah, it's always just interesting to me how people are reticent to ask the people around them, what do you reckon? This is the kind of leader I want to be. Is that how everyone perceives me or not? So it's about removing that, that first step of emotional intelligence is about removing judgment and just finding out whether your intentions are hitting the mark or whether the external view of you is a little different to what you had intended.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I suppose, again, from personal experience, I was that owner, manager, director, whatever, that had my own office. And we're here today. Have Kim joined us here, and I have thrown myself into the open plan office to be with my team, and simply, well, along with a couple of other things, but by doing that and being not having my own little ivory tower, and being one with my team, the impact and the results that have come out of that, and being there, as you mentioned, to showcase my vulnerability has been a really positive step towards being the leader that I would like to be perceived as. So yeah, having a good look at yourself, and seeing if you are aligned with your brand. Look at investing in some personal development if you aren't there with all of the skills yet. So if you want to be a great speaker, or you want to be a great presenter, or you want to dabble in videography, go do a course. As I mentioned before, we haven't all been blessed with all these skills naturally. A lot of the time, if we want to get good at things, we have to practice and we have to invest in ourselves. And then once you've finished having a look at your physical brand, we then need to shift your attention to your digital brand and make sure we really polish your profiles. Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube. You really need to explore. If you've still got a MySpace account, like that, I think that was over 10 years ago. So we don't want to be having out old information about ourselves that's not current in the market. All right, market your brand. Well, here we pretty much want you to be a star across your own channels. Well, it would have been not that long ago, say 10 years ago, we were relying on all the mainstream media to create visions and opinions of people and organisations for a really long time. Now, everyone's got their own channel, and it's called Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We can actually control the message that we are putting across all these channels on our own. So we want to develop, if you're interested in actually building your profile and you're already committed to posting onto your social networks, just have a little bit of a think about putting a strategy towards that rather than a scattergun approach. I like people to think about, right, so what is a comfortable amount of posts that you can actually commit to every single week? Instead of, you might come out of this webinar, because we know you will, with all these great ideas. So you're going to go and create some awesome posts, then you're going to schedule them for the next 2 weeks, but then the following 2 weeks you might not actually be posting. So I think, everything comes from consistency. And so, choose a posting strategy and commit to it.
And that posting strategy, Marissa, if I'm not mistaken, it might be, because many of you might be in government where you're not using or accessing Facebook as part of your branding strategy. That's totally fine. But we're talking about all of your mechanisms for communicating with people are branding strategies, right? So it might be a weekly email. It's about, thinking about how often do you want to connect with people and what's the purpose of that connection?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. And if you're in a group where, say, you are talking to a bunch of clients, or you're representing a group of people, how often they're actually going to hear from you. It could be through electronic newsletters as well as emails. But yeah, how often you want to communicate with them, and what sort of forum and what sort of level of detail, and what inclusions are they actually going to receive from you each and every time. And then they will grow to actually expect it. And it's really funny when you start developing a strategy and it's missed, people start going, oh wow, well, where did that go? And you go, wow, okay, great, I've got them. You actually then, when people are missing something from you that you haven't posted, wow, great, I actually must be providing great content of value that people are looking forward to. So that's really, really awesome.
We try and ask people, what topics are challenging for you? What would you like to hear about? And then, we try and bring the information that's current to people. So it's that sense of engaging with people and developing our brand as we go and letting people inside, rather than always trying to hold all the cards and be the expert. And that's one of the pitfalls I see in organisations with leaders, is that sometimes leaders feel like they have to stand alone, or they're in some way separate, or if they were competent leaders, they would know everything themselves. But the truth is that we've got to rely on the people around us to tell us what they need, because human beings are ever changing, just like any old market is. So our personal brand, just like our business brand, needs to be dynamic and change alongside what our team needs.
And that's exactly right. Great lead into developing your brand. That's exactly what it is. Keeping fresh and up to date. And as I said in the beginning, that your personal brand is fluid. Yeah. So we want to ensure that if you start liking or, you know, start posting some videos that are crazy cat videos, getting hurt or cats on fire, and then you're out and on your other side, or, you know, it's saying that how much you love cats, you're actually, you know, confusing your brand message. And that's a really probably terrible example of, you know, people might not be sending, I suppose, videos of cats on fire, but it's a bit extreme. But, you know, like, make sure your message and the things you're liking, the things you're commenting on, the things you're engaging in, the time you're spending with your alignment and networking with others is all going to feed in positively to your personal brand. Because again, we can see a hell of a lot more than what we ever used to be able to, especially on social bios. The things you like, the things that you're associated with online, the groups, the networks you're connected with. This is public information a lot of the time, whether you're friends with someone or not. This is quite public information. And so people, again, these 90% of employers who are out Googling you and looking at you can see all this information. So developing your brand means staying fresh and staying innovative. The way you did things in 1985 doesn't need to be the way you're doing things now in 2019. So, and being different, you know, find this in a lot of different industries. There's a lot of copycatting going on. You find a real estate agent will suddenly do something one way, and then next minute, the whole industry of real estate agents will start doing that very thing. Be the real estate agent, and what we try to promote here at the Marketing Factory is be the real estate agent that does things differently. When, you know, bring that back into your own industry. So don't feel like you need to follow suit to fit in to your industry. Do yourself a favor and find what the industry isn't doing and doing that, because that will go a lot further. Most importantly, be authentic. You know, you don't want to be out singing the songs of something and then your actions or, you know, following words or groups you're following are saying a different thing. The more true you can be to who you actually are will be the better. Don't try to be someone else. And as I mentioned before, I'd like to be the next Sonia Kruger, but I really don't have much of a tango on me. So I've got to try to find that way of putting these people that we have up in our vision of saying, well, what would they do? How would they act and how would they be? But bring it into your own flavour and your own way of doing things, so that you are actually projecting an image that is true, not copycatting someone else to be known as, oh, that's the person that wants to be this. You know?
I don't know how to break it to Marissa, but she's about 2 foot short of coming anywhere close to Sonia Kruger. So I think that's one goal she might not achieve. But
well, I think getting back to the beginning. Where do you start? At the beginning. So before we continue posting or engaging in something we don't quite feels right, just stop and sit down and really have a clear vision. Really just go back to basics and break it down. What do I want? How do I want to be perceived? Because that's probably where it's all going to start. We're big believers here at the factory of, you know, having a clear vision so that the team knows the way in which we're swimming every single day. The reason you get out of bed every morning is for this. So having a clear vision from the get-go really helps align that direction, that needle that Kim referred to before, you know, having that, where am I going? What do I want to be? What's the outcome that is, you know, probably the best, very best place to start. And obviously being self-aware, you know, what are you good at? And if you want to actually go forth into an area that isn't your specialty, making sure that you're supporting yourself with some learning, some workshops, some training to actually bring yourself up there and saying, you know, you might have that ultimate desire to break into a new industry, and yes, you can, but support yourself. A lot of people are really great. I find a lot of people are really great at things, but as human beings, we seem to focus on the things we're not good at more so. So, you know, or to say, oh, look, I could never do that like that person. And it's not about comparing yourself with anyone else. As I said before, you've all got your own personal brand. So understanding, and, you know, being self-aware, and together with self-awareness is that other, you know, great flurry of information called emotional intelligence as well that, you know, we could talk about forever. So, you know, being self-aware and really promoting the good things that you are doing, because the other stuff can come. You know, give people what you're good at. If you're really good at writing great stories or great blogs, or, you know, really have writing engaging content, keep doing that. And in the background and behind the scenes, start working on your presentation skills and your comfortability talking in front of a camera if you have a desire to be like the next YouTuber, or presenting or pitching your message over YouTube.
So one of the main things I'm hearing you say is all around that authenticity, like, you know, you do you, boo. And that is a key lesson for leadership. Like, we all lead in very different ways, and that's okay. I know for myself, and, you know, anyone who's involved with me professionally will have some sense of the level of chaos in which I operate. And, you know, that actually works fine for me. What doesn't work is when I start to make myself wrong for that. So understanding our strengths is about recognizing, where does this have an impact on other people? Like, where is that line when I need to start developing social awareness and recognizing that now I'm preventing myself from achieving the outcomes I'm after because of the impact of these ways of being on other people. But for the most part, you know, these are my strengths. So it's about recognizing what are your strengths and how can you use them to be more effective. And I did just want to, I know you touched on this earlier, Marissa, but I did just want to go back for a moment to those top tips you had for the online branding, because I know that that's a key concern for a lot of people. And a lot of you have actually asked how you might use your online profile to help you in your leadership career. So Marissa has got, I think it might be 5 or something, top tips for reinventing your reputation online to share with us.
If you've forgotten your logins, you can always email the actual developer and to say, you know, you might have to go through and prove some identity questions, but just to say you've lost your logins, and you can actually close sites down. And this goes for organisations as well. A lot of the time we are working with organisations where the person who managed their social media has left, and so they don't have the logins anymore. Again, apply to the developer. So scan them, and, you know, make sure that the image that you can see on from a stranger's perspective is the brand, is the look, is the reputation that you want to be out there. Do not be afraid to delete inappropriate content, those silly pictures, those drunk images from Saturday night, you know, that someone's tagged you in that you don't really want to be tagged in. Untag yourself. Don't be scared to hit that delete button. One of the big things that I find quite off-putting being an employer is people mocking their workplace. So saying, oh God, you know, I have to go back to that place again, or I would lucky if I get a lunch break this year. You know, those sorts of things. You know, be mindful if you are looking to increase your personal brand, that these are all the things, these comments can be seen somehow, somewhere by friends of friends. Facebook is the big guy. It's got the most amount of daily users in the world. So these things, friends of friends, Facebook's very good at sharing content across our friends of friends, which could really encapsulate a large number of people. First thing is select an appropriate profile picture. Now, the profile picture is pretty much, you know, the window to your online soul. So, you know, call up your Facebook profile picture right now. Grab your phone, have a look at it, and or after this actually, but have a look at it and say, does it project the image of professional? Does it project the image of trustworthiness and honesty? These are the top 3 values a lot of people are looking for in that image. So if it's a photo of your dog, or if it's a photo of your kids, or whatever it is, your profile picture is your one window into your personal branding soul online. So choose wisely. Writing a leadership statement is a really good one if you're on LinkedIn. It allows it also on Instagram. Writing a great personal manifesto of the values and things that are important to you. And then once you've got that down, unify them all. Copy, paste. Wherever you can, copy, paste. It's about making them all sing the same song. And in marketing, that's where we get the biggest bang for our buck, is when we have all of our marketing messages connected. it works stronger, because you can relate that to any major national brand that you know and love. Oh, what a feeling, Toyota. You hear that catch cry, that message across all of their brand. And you look at every other brand, whenever they have, their statement that goes with a brand, it is unified across every medium they use, be it TV, radio, billboards, in the newspaper. So we do the same for ourselves, unify it all, so that we're all singing the same song across our socials.
Just going to add one more thing to that. So Marissa talked about, people complaining on social media about their job, and just like from the corporate perspective, something you may not be aware of is that the Change Fair Work Australia legislation incorporates the use of social media posts as indicative of bullying and harassment. So, for example, if you are to make a comment about a colleague or something like this on social media, then that can absolutely be in the mix if someone were to make a claim around bullying and harassment. So just to be aware that, just because that's something that's occurring outside the workplace, it's still actually a feed into some significant industrial instruments that are used to determine our workplace performance. So sorry if that's a bit heavy, but I just thought I would share that comment with you.
It's important. Yeah.
What do you have to share with us, Marissa, about leaders who have impact?
Well, I think leaders who have impact really really have the ability to encourage others along their journey. And this is, I think, or what it's a lot of it's about. At the moment, we're going through, I suppose, a major election. And so again, people are looking for others to come along and believe in what they're saying. So, and coming back to authenticity, if we don't have respect for our leaders, then it's pretty unlikely that they're going to have any impact. So as much as you can talk, what do they say back in communication? People won't remember all the words that we say, but they'll remember the way in which it was delivered, or the way in which it was carried out, whether it was passionate or not. So, again, your personal brand does affect all of this, because it's much greater than the message alone.
Interestingly, that's just the 7% rule that Marissa just referred to there. So only 7% of what someone gets from us in their interaction with us comes from the words that we use. And there is certain stuff around the neuroscience of vocabulary that we can use as tools there. But really, the point is that people are impacted by who you are being, not by what you say. So it is far less about what you say and far more about how you show up, how you know yourself, how you harness yourself, how you profile and presence yourself around other people.
Yeah, so grow your network to improve your influence. This can be anything from starting small and, going bigger from there. So, again, start following people, start joining groups in the areas that you actually want to grow your influence. Yeah. So start requesting to join these groups. There's a lot of great ones again on LinkedIn. Facebook has their own, and this is again online. What you can do in your own regional areas, and whether there are networking groups, whether there are associations, whether you are aligned even with your governing body. This is a hilarious one for me, that people say that we're great at marketing, we're the marketers of the future, and they're not actually even aligned with our governing body, the Australian Marketing Institute. I find that hilarious. Anyway, so if you're looking to be the next person in your industry, make sure that you're aligned with these organizations and groups. Improving your influence, and getting yourself published, getting your message out there beyond your own channel, whether that might mean writing for another small blog site, whether you could work in collaboration with someone else whose services yours and theirs intertwine, and helping them, you help them write some content if they need some more social content or something like this, and then build yourself up to maybe looking to write for a community newspaper, doing, any sort of radio spots, or even might be a magazine in your industry that you can just merely by saying, hey, I've got great content, would you like it, is a really awesome place to start, and then building from there, because all of a sudden, as soon as you're published, much like Kim here, your profile is greatly increased, and then people actually look towards you as being even further qualified. Yes, as we mentioned before, staying fresh and motivated and innovative, doing things differently and making sure that, you know, the way we were doing things back in 1985 doesn't have to be the way we're doing things this year. So what new, and with the advances in technology, there's so many more things that we could be doing. So staying fresh, staying on top of these sort of things, and social media is the big one there. And making sure though that you invest your time well into areas that are actually going to be rewarded from, and making sure that your audience is great in as many areas as we can.
One of the things I was just going to mention there is that people will often say to us around a comment like that, something like, oh, you know, but these are my values. I'm not going to change the kind of leader I am just because the market's changing. And I think this is such an interesting comment. We're not talking about diminishing your own values or your own personal integrity. We're talking about how you can stay connected to what's genuinely important to you. And one of the best ways to do that is, as Marissa said earlier, write yourself a leadership statement. And so I was just going to share with you that, you know, when I started my own business, my vision was to make a difference. Like, what I saw was a genuine gap. I was like, organizations don't engage employees properly. They don't. They create strategy. They send people off to get trained in systems or products or, you know, sometimes aspects of personal development. Then they give them a strategy that they haven't been involved in the creation of and tell them to go implement it. And there's this whole gap in the middle. So I was like, okay, well, and I'd had years of experience as a strategist and working as a change management consultant. And so then, you know, for me, the real driver was that I wanted to make a difference. But it's not just about that core value, like I want to be known for making a difference. Then it's about the how to. So this leadership statement should be both visionary, but it should also articulate the pathway. So for me, the vision is to make a difference to organisations. And the way that I would do that is by providing the tools for insight, the courage for individuals to take action, and the experience of expanded outcomes.
And I suppose, you know, we see it a lot in politics, especially around the most recent one that I can think of right now coming to mind was the Australia Says Yes vote. There was a lot of pollies that fell into, you know, sticking by their values and very old school. Australian majority voted yes. And the leaders, I think, that stood by that or changed their view on that have been seen as progressive, have been seen as future focused, not stuck in their old ways and stuck in old values. That's the one thing. And as I said, personal branding is fluid. We should be, auditing it and checking it to ensure that we are aligned with the modern day, because that's what people want. They don't necessarily want the old school, the old fashioned way. Of progressive people want progressive leaders. And I think that's what we see coming through strongly in the polls.
I want to leave you with the 3 standard rules we always build culture by. One, and very important when we talk about personal branding, is we all have influence. All of us are making a mark everywhere we go, every day. The question is, what's the mark you want to make? What's the impression you want to leave? What perception do you want people to have of you? And then secondly, we are what we do. So it's not the big sweeping changes that are going to make the biggest difference to the kind of leader that people remember you as, but it is the little things. It's walking around, it's following up on things on time, or letting people know when you can't make your commitment. It's connecting with people on the personal level. For those of you managing really big teams, it's about remembering people's names and being able to say hello to them when you pass by them. And third rule I want to leave you with is how you do anything is how you do everything. And this is one of the things that I most kind of try to embrace in my own life. It's how we respond in this moment is indicative of how we're going to feel in the next moment about ourselves and the environment. So, you know, this is really about asking yourself in the moment, where is my thinking right now? Is it below the line or is it above the line? And in leadership, this translates to, you know, how am I approaching this problem or this issue with this individual? What's going on here and what choice can I make to be more effective? Here's both mine and Marissa's details. Thank you so much for your time today. Have a fantastic afternoon, and remember, culture counts.